Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into something I think really resonates in modern life. Barry Schwartz's idea of the paradox of choice.
It's a fascinating concept, isn't it? How something we value so highly, freedom of choice, might actually be, well, making us less happy.
Exactly. So our mission today is to explore these surprising insights of having too many options and figure out, how we can navigate it all a bit better.
Yeah, find some practical insights.
Because I'm sure most of you listening have felt that little bit of overwhelm, right? Standing in front of a shelf, just completely stuck.
Oh, absolutely. That analysis paralysis.
So let's unpack this foundational idea Schwartz talks about, the official dogma of Western societies.
Right. The core belief that, well, to maximize well-being, you maximize individual freedom.
And maximizing freedom means?
Maximizing choice. The more choices people have, the theory goes, the better off they are.
It seems so obvious, doesn't it? Like it wouldn't even occur to most people to question it. It's just how things are.
It really is deeply ingrained. But Schwartz points out how this has just exploded in everyday life. I mean, think about the supermarket. He talks about, 175 salad dressings?
175, that's wild.
And like 275 kinds of cereal. It's not just a few more options. It's a completely different scale.
Yeah.
Or consumer electronics. He mentions a single store where you could configure something like 6.5 million different stereo systems from the components they offered. It's staggering.
And phones. Remember the old days? On a bell, you got the phone.
Exactly. One choice, basically.
Wow.
Now our phones do everything. Schwartz mentions people literally asking in stores, do you have a phone that doesn't do too much?
And the answer is always no, right?
Pretty much. There's this underlying assumption that more features, more capabilities are always better.
But it's interesting, this desire for simplicity popping up because of the complexity. And it goes way beyond just buying stuff, doesn't it? It seeps into really fundamental life decisions.
Oh, absolutely. Take healthcare. The shift towards patient autonomy sounds great on the surface. Empower the patient.
Right. More control.
But Schwartz points out the burden. The decision shifts from the doctor, who, has the expertise, to the patient, who might be ill, scared, and probably doesn't understand all the nuances.
That's a heavy weight to bear when you're not feeling well.
Definitely. And then there's identity itself. It's not something you just inherit anymore. He said you wake up every day and basically have to invent who you are, decide what kind of person you want to be. That's a lot of daily decision-making.
Or even things like marriage or starting a family. It used to be the main choice was maybe who. Now it's whether to get married at all, when to have kids, if you have kids. The defaults are gone.
Exactly. Those foundational structures have loosened, leaving individuals with, more choices, but also more pressure.
And work. Technology lets us work anywhere, anytime. Sounds like freedom.
But it means you're constantly deciding whether to work. Schwartz gives that example of being at his kid's soccer game, right? Phone buzzing,
right.
Maybe a laptop nearby.
Yeah, constantly asking, should I take this call? Should I answer this email?
Even if you decide not to, the act of having to make that decision over and over again changes the experience. You're not fully present.
It chips away at the enjoyment.
So yeah, the big picture is the world used to seem more, written in stone. Clear paths, fewer choices. Now, Schwartz calls it a do-it-yourself 10 Commandments kit.
That's a good way to put it.
And look, there are obvious benefits to this increased freedom. Nobody denies that. But the core of his argument is focusing on these unexpected downsides, the parts we didn't really see coming.
Okay, so let's dive into those downsides. This is where it gets really counterintuitive. He talks about two main negative effects. The first one is paralysis.
Right. Instead of liberating people, having all this choice often just freezes them. They can't choose at all.
It seems backward, but yeah.
The classic demonstration is that jam study from Stanford. You probably heard it.
Vaguely, yeah. Remind me.
Okay, so researchers set up a tasting booth in a gourmet food store. On one day, they offered like 24 different flavors of artisanal jam.
Wow, okay. Lots of options.
Yeah. Another day, they offered only 6 flavors. Now, more people were actually drawn to the display with 24 jams. It looked more appealing,
Makes sense. Variety attracts attention.
But here's the kicker. When it came to actually buying the jam, the people who saw the 6-jam display were 10 times more likely to buy a jar than those who saw the 24-jam display.
10 times. So the huge choice actually stopped people from buying.
Exactly. It was overwhelming. Faced with so many options, it became too difficult to choose the right one, so they just didn't choose at all. Walked away empty-handed.
I feel that, like scrolling through Netflix for half an hour and then just giving up and going to bed.
It's the same phenomenon. And it's not just trivial stuff like jam or movies. It happens with really important decisions, too.
Like what?
Well, Schwartz cites research on 401k retirement savings plans. They found that for every additional 10 mutual funds an employer offered,
Yeah.
participation in the plan actually decreased by about 2%.
Wait, so more investment options meant fewer people signing up to save for retirement?
Yep. So imagine an employer boosts their offerings from, say, 5 funds to 50 funds. Sounds great, right? More choice.
Yeah.
But the likely result was that 10% fewer employees would participate at all.
That's huge. People were leaving free money on the employer match.
Because the decision felt too complex, too daunting. It was easier psychologically to just do nothing. Avoid the choice altogether. Schwartz mentioned similar issues with seniors choosing prescription drug plans. Just too many options led to inaction.
Okay, so paralysis is one major downside. But what if you actually manage to push through that? You make a decision, you pick the jam, you sign up for the 401k. Is that the end of it?
Unfortunately, no. That's the second paradox. Even when we overcome the paralysis and make a choice, we often end up less satisfied with the choice we made.
Less satisfied, even if it's objectively a good choice.
Even then. And there are a few key psychological reasons why. The first one is regret.
Yeah. Buyer's remorse.
Kind of, but amplified. When you have tons of options, it's incredibly easy to imagine that one of the alternatives you didn't choose might have been better. Even slightly better.
So you compare your actual choice to this imagined perfect choice.
Exactly. And that imagined perfection subtracts from the satisfaction you feel with what you actually got, even if what you got is really good. And sometimes, Schwartz notes, the anticipated regret, the fear you might regret your choice later, is even worse. It can paralyze you before you even decide.
So it's not just looking back, it's the fear of looking back later.
Right, which leads nicely into the second reason. Opportunity costs.
Okay, explain that one.
When you choose anything, you are simultaneously not choosing all the other available options. The attractive features of those things you rejected, they linger in your mind and reduce the enjoyment of the thing you actually chose.
So the good bits, the things you missed out on, make your current choice seem less good.
Precisely. Schwartz uses this great little anecdote, I think it was a cartoon, about someone lounging on a beautiful beach in the Hamptons.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, but they can't stop thinking about how great the parking situation probably is back in Manhattan right now, because everyone's out here.
Huh. So they're physically in paradise, but mentally focused on a missed, mundane opportunity.
Exactly. Every choice involves trade-offs, missed opportunities. But when there are so many alternatives, there are just more attractive features you're missing out on, constantly reminding you of what could have been.
That makes a lot of sense. It's hard to be fully present and satisfied when your mind is catalyzing all the other possibilities.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the third reason is, I think, really profound. Escalation of expectations.
Escalation of expectations.
Yeah.
How does that work?
This goes back to Schwartz's famous story about buying jeans. He needed new jeans, went to the store expecting, maybe one or two basic, probably ill-fitting styles like in the old days.
Right, the standard dad jeans.
Yeah. But instead, he walks in and finds slim fit, easy fit, relaxed fit, boot cut, straight leg, button fly, zipper fly, stone washed, acid washed, distressed.
Yeah.
Just an explosion of options.
Okay, the modern jeans experience.
So he spends like an hour trying on all these different types, and he walks out with, in his words, the best fitting pair of jeans I had ever owned. Objectively, a fantastic outcome compared to the old days.
Sounds like a win.
But he felt worse.
Worse. How?
Because with all those options, his expectations had skyrocketed. He wasn't just looking for good enough jeans anymore. He was subconsciously expecting perfect jeans. And what he got was great, maybe even the best he'd ever had, but they weren't absolutely, utterly perfect. So relative to his sky-high expectations, the experience felt like a failure.
Wow. So the sheer availability of choice made really good feel disappointing.
Precisely. He has that great line, everything was better back when everything was worse. Because when expectations were lower, you could actually be pleasantly surprised. Now, with endless choice, we expect perfection, and anything less feels like we messed up. It leads me to say, maybe jokingly, maybe not, that the secret to happiness is low expectations.
That's so counterintuitive to how we usually think about striving and achieving. And there's one more factor to dissatisfaction.
Yes, and it's a heavy one. Self-blame.
Okay.
Think about it. Back when there was only one type of jeans and they fit badly, who did you blame?
The store.
Yeah.
The manufacturer. The world.
Right. It wasn't your fault. But now, when there are hundreds of options and you spend an hour choosing and you still end up with a pair that's just okay or maybe develops a hole too quickly?
Oh.
Who's responsible?
Me. I am.
Exactly.
Yeah?
You are.
Yeah.
You had all the choices, all the information. You could have done better. So the disappointment turns inward. Schwartz argues this is a major factor contributing to rising rates of depression and even suicide in affluent, choice-rich societies. When the outcome is disappointing, we blame ourselves instead of the world.
That's a really sobering thought. The freedom of choice leads to the burden of responsibility for the outcome.
It's a tough consequence. So yeah, if you pull it all together, objectively, we might have better options, better stuff, more opportunities. But subjectively, because of regret, opportunity costs, high expectations, and self-blame, we often feel worse off.
Which perfectly sets up this really useful distinction Schwartz makes between two sort of decision-making styles, right? The maximizer and the satisficer.
Yes, exactly. This is crucial for understanding how different people cope with this abundance of choice.
So what's the difference? What are these types?
Okay, so maximizers are the people who need to make the absolute best possible choice. They need to be sure that every decision leads to the best possible outcome.
The perfectionists of choice?
Kind of, yeah. This means they engage in this exhaustive and exhausting search. They have to look at all the options, compare everything. In a world with near infinite choices, Schwartz says this is basically a recipe for misery. Because how can you ever be sure you found the actual best?
Right. There might always be something else out there you missed.
Exactly. Now, Satisficers, on the other hand, they're looking for good enough.
Good enough.
Yeah. They have a set of criteria, a standard in mind. They search for options, and as soon as they find one that meets their standard that's good enough, they stop looking.
Okay, that sounds much less stressful.
It generally is. Think about buying, like, postage stamps. A Satisficer just needs stamps that work. Maybe they look okay, they find some, buy them, done. A maximizer. Well, maybe they need the most aesthetically pleasing stamp, or the one with the best historical significance. It becomes a research project.
But our culture kind of looks down on good enough, doesn't it? We call it settling.
We absolutely do. Don't settle is common advice. But Schwartz presents compelling evidence against that. There was a study looking at college seniors searching for jobs.
Okay, what did they find?
The maximizers, the ones trying to find the best job, they considered more job possibilities. They spent way more time comparing options. And objectively, they did get better jobs. Their average starting salaries were about 20% higher than the Satisficers.
So maximizing worked, in a way.
Objectively, yes.
Huh?
But subjectively, the maximizers were significantly less happy with the jobs they got. They were more pessimistic, more stressed, more anxious, more tired, more overwhelmed, more regretful, and more disappointed than the Satisficers.
Wow, so they got paid more but felt worse about it?
Precisely. The Satisficers, who took the first job that met their criteria, felt much better about their choices and their outcomes. Which really makes you ask, right, what's actually more important? Doing objectively better or feeling better about how you did?
That's a deep question. I guess most people would ultimately prefer to feel better.
Schwartz certainly argues that subjective well-being often trumps objective measures.
So is it black and white? Are you either a maximizer or a satisficer? Or can you be different in different parts of your life? Like maybe you maximize about your career but satisfice about, I don't know, what kind of pasta to buy.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's probably more of a spectrum, and context matters. Schwartz suggests that being a maximizer about something you're genuinely passionate about, maybe like your example, vintage cars, or maybe for him, wine might be fine, even enjoyable. The exhaustive search itself can be part of the hobby.
Okay.
But the danger is applying that maximizing mindset to everything. And counterintuitively, he argues it's often the most important decisions where maximizing can hurt you the most.
Really? Like what?
Like choosing a college.
Yeah.
Or a life partner. He gives the example of the student who gets into, say, Brown, which is fantastic, but their first choice was Yale.
Right.
The maximizer might go to Brown, but spend their whole time thinking, this is great, but it's not Yale. They're constantly focused on the missed best option, diminishing their satisfaction with a perfectly wonderful reality. A satisficer might be thrilled with Brown because it met their criteria for a great school.
That makes sense. It's also important, he says, to distinguish maximizing from just being a perfectionist, right?
Yes, that's a subtle but crucial distinction. A perfectionist, think of like Michael Jordan, or a dedicated artist, has incredibly high standards. They strive for excellence. But they can often still be satisfied with achieving something really, really good, even if it's not theoretically perfect, because they understand perfection might be unattainable.
Okay.
A maximizer, though, feels like they've failed if they don't get the absolute best. Anything less than the peak is experienced as a loss. It's a different psychological orientation.
So, thinking bigger picture, what is it about our culture that pushes us towards this maximizing? You mentioned social media earlier, that constant comparison must play a role.
Oh, hugely. Social media is like a highlight reel of everyone else's best moments and best choices. It constantly rubs your nose in what you don't have or the choices you didn't make. It fuels that feeling of inadequacy.
Yeah, the FOMO, fear of missing out.
Exactly. And it feeds into this broader cultural ideology that Schwartz points out. No matter how much you have, it's not enough. There's this relentless push for new and improved, bigger, better, faster. It's almost seen as un-American not to strive for the absolute maximum in every area.
This pressure to always want more, achieve more, have the best.
Right. It fosters what he calls a consumptive orientation towards maximizing, rather than maybe an inner drive to simply produce good work or build strong relationships. It's about getting the best, not necessarily being your best.
Okay, this feels pretty heavy. It sounds like a deep-seated cultural issue, amplified by technology. So the big question then is, what can we actually do about it? How do we push back or adjust our own mindset?
Well, the core idea Schwartz proposes is about consciously embracing limits. It's about creating, in his metaphor, your own fishbowl.
A fishbowl, meaning boundaries.
Exactly. Recognizing that infinite freedom, infinite choice isn't actually liberating. It's paralyzing and anxiety-inducing. We need constraints to function well and be happy. But the problem is, self-imposed limits are really hard to stick to, right?
Oh, yeah. It's so easy to just click on one more product comparison, look at one more option.
Totally. So Schwartz suggests we might need gimmicks or external supports to help us.
Like what kind of gimmicks?
Things like maybe using a time safe to lock your phone away for certain hours, or making a published declaration of a commitment, telling friends you're only going to look at 3 potential vacation spots, not 30.
Adding some social pressure.
Right. Or even commitment devices like writing a check to a political campaign you absolutely despise and giving it to a friend to mail if you fail to stick to your resolution. It raises the stakes.
Huh. Okay, that's creative, making it harder to cheat on your own rules.
It provides that external structure that's hard to generate internally. And he stresses, look, changing these habits isn't easy. You'll probably feel uncomfortable at first. You'll feel like you're leaving opportunities on the table.
Yeah, that maximizing voice will still be whispering.
It will.
Yeah.
But he argues you have to push through that discomfort, stick with the new habit, maybe starting small, just in one area of your life, to actually experience the relief and increased satisfaction that comes from limiting choice.
So that's the personal level. But thinking structurally, you mentioned things like retirement plans earlier. Are there ways society or institutions can help manage this choice overload beyond just individual willpower?
Absolutely. This gets into the fascinating field of choice architecture, which was popularized by Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein in their book Nudge. It's about designing the environment in which people make choices.
Okay, designing the choices.
A key tool is the power of defaults. What happens if people do nothing? Schwartz highlights the powerful example of organ donation rates.
Right, you mentioned that briefly. The difference is huge.
It's staggering.
Yeah.
In the U.S., traditionally, it's an opt-in system. You have to actively check a box on your driver's license or somewhere to become a donor. Even though surveys show massive public approval for organ donation, maybe 95% or more, the actual donation rate is often around like 25-30%, because people just don't get around to checking the box. Inertia wins.
Okay. And the alternative?
In many European countries, they use an opt-out system. The default is that you are an organ donor unless you actively take steps to say you don't want to be.
So they flip the default.
Exactly. And in those countries, donation rates are often 90% or even higher. Same people, same general attitudes towards donation. The only difference is the default, what happens when people do nothing.
Wow. So just changing that one setting has a massive impact on behavior and outcomes.
A massive life-saving impact. And it applies elsewhere, too. Remember the 401k example. If employers automatically enroll, employees make opt-out the default instead of opt-in participation, rates can triple.
So the idea is to structure choices so that inertia or even paralysis leads to a good outcome, not a bad one.
Precisely. It's what Thaler and Sunstein call libertarian paternalism.
Yeah.
You're not forcing anyone. People can always choose to opt out easily. But you're designing the system, the choice architecture, to gently nudge people towards better decisions, or at least prevent catastrophic inaction due to overwhelm.
Making the easy path the beneficial path.
You got it. And there's one final piece Schwartz brings in, which I find really powerful, connecting back to happiness.
Yeah.
He points out that decades of research show perhaps the single most important determinant of human happiness is the strength of our social connections, our relationships with friends, family, community.
Right. That makes intuitive sense.
But here's the paradox, Link. What do close relationships inevitably do?
They take time, effort.
They do, but they also limit your choices.
How so?
Well, think about taking that amazing job offer. But it's on the other side of the world, away from your family and close friends. Having those strong ties makes that choice much harder, right? It constrains your options. Or deciding where to live, what weekend plans to make. Relationships create obligations and dependencies that limit pure individual freedom.
Okay, yeah, I see that. They act as anchors.
Exactly. And in our modern world, drowning in choices, Schwartz argues this limitation, this constraint that comes from strong social bonds has actually become a profound benefit. It's not a cost to be minimized. It's a crucial part of the fishbowl we need.
So the relationships themselves provide a natural, healthy boundary against overwhelming freedom.
Beautifully put. He says, everybody needs a fishbowl. A reasonably rich one with meaningful connections and structure, but shattering the ball in pursuit of infinite, unconstrained freedom. That often leads, he says, to catastrophe after another.
Wow. So wrapping this all up, what this deep dive really shows is that the paradox of choice isn't just some abstract theory. It hits us right where we live, profoundly shaping our daily anxiety levels, our satisfaction, our overall well-being.
It really does. It forces us to question that basic assumption that more is always better.
It's so counterintuitive, but the evidence seems pretty clear. Having limitless options can genuinely make us less happy, more stressed, and weirdly less free in a meaningful sense.
Yeah, freedom from constant, agonizing decision-making might be more valuable than freedom to choose endlessly.
So the final thought maybe for everyone listening is this. How could intentionally creating or strengthening some fishbowls in your own life actually help?
Right. Where could you consciously limit your options?
Maybe it's setting a rule about how many online reviews you read before buying something. Maybe it's delegating certain decisions at work or home, or maybe it's about investing more deeply in those relationships that naturally provide those healthy boundaries.
Could simplifying your choices actually lead to more satisfaction?
Could less choice, paradoxically, lead to a greater sense of real freedom and genuine happiness? Something to think about.
Definitely food for thought.
Thank you for diving deep with us today into the paradox of choice.